The big secret about death. What if everything you've been told about death is wrong? What if it's not the scary, final ending we've been taught to believe? For as long as we can remember, people have been afraid of death. Religions warn us about it. Movies make it seem dark and scary. Even science sometimes talks about it like it's just nothingness. But what if the truth is completely different? What if death isn't the end at all, but just another step in a much bigger journey? Think about it like this. Imagine you're a caterpillar. You spend your whole life crawling around, eating leaves, thinking, this is it. This is all there is. Then one day, you build a cocoon. From the outside, it looks like the end. But inside, you're changing into something new, a butterfly. When you finally break free, you realize you were never just a caterpillar. You were always meant to fly. What if death is like that? Not an ending, but a transformation. Ancient cultures knew this. They didn't see death as something to fear. They saw it as a doorway, a return to something greater. But over time, that truth got buried. People in power realized that if they could make others afraid of death, they could control them. Fear keeps people in line. But now, more and more people are waking up. Scientists studying near-death experiences say some people who die come back with incredible stories of floating outside their bodies, of seeing loved ones, of feeling more alive than ever. Ancient texts and secret teachings say the same thing: the soul doesn't die. It just moves on. If that's true, then everything changes. If death isn't the end, then life isn't as small as we thought. Maybe we're not just these bodies. Maybe we're something much bigger. This isn't just about feeling better about dying. It's about living right now with more courage, more love, and less fear. Because if death isn't the worst thing that can happen, then what's really holding you back? Want me to keep going and explain more? Seeing beyond the illusion. The first thing we need to understand is that death isn't what it seems. Most of us grew up thinking of it as this big, scary stop sign at the end of life, like a door slamming shut forever. But across time and cultures, the people who really studied life's mysteries kept coming back to the same idea. Death is more like a horizon. When a ship sails past the horizon, it doesn't disappear from existence. It just moves somewhere our eyes can't follow. One of the biggest clues comes from near-death experiences. Thousands of people who've technically died and come back tell shockingly similar stories. Floating above their bodies, moving through tunnels of light, meeting loved ones, even reviewing their whole lives like a movie. The wildest part? Many who were blind from birth could suddenly see during these experiences. If the mind was just the brain, that wouldn't make sense. But if consciousness keeps going, it changes everything. Then there are the ancient teachings. The Egyptians didn't mummify bodies because they thought death was the end. They did it because they saw the body like a temporary suit the soul wears. Tibetan Buddhists talk about the bardo, an in-between state where the soul prepares for its next journey. Even Jesus said, "The kingdom of God is within you," hinting that what we call death might just be waking up to a reality we've forgotten. Modern science is catching up too. Quantum physics shows that at the smallest level, everything is energy vibrating at different frequencies. If that's true, then maybe death is just our energy shifting to a frequency our physical eyes can't perceive. Like how we can't see radio waves, but they're still there carrying music. This leads to the biggest idea of all. If consciousness doesn't die, then we're not these temporary bodies. We're the awareness experiencing the body. Like how you're not the TV screen, you're the watcher. When you realize that, fear starts losing its grip. You begin noticing strange synchronicities, numbers repeating, dreams that come true, déjà vu moments. These might be whispers from the deeper part of you that already knows the truth. You're more than flesh and bone. But here's where it gets really interesting. If death isn't real in the way we thought, then life isn't either, at least not the way we've been living it. Most people sleepwalk through existence, chasing money, approval, and distractions because they think time is running out. But if the soul is eternal, then this life isn't about collecting trophies. It's about growth, love, and remembering who we really are. That's why the lies about death matter so much. Fear of death keeps people trapped, in jobs they hate, in relationships that shrink their spirit, in wars over beliefs that might not even be true. But when you see through the illusion, you start living differently. Risks feel smaller. Love feels bigger. And the petty things people fight over start looking ridiculous, like kids arguing over who gets the best seat on a bus that's going to the same place. This isn't just philosophy, it's liberation. The moment you truly grasp that you're not a brief candle about to be blown out, but a spark of something endless, everything changes. You stop waiting for someday to be happy. You stop fearing what others think. You start living like someone who knows they'll never truly die, because in the most real sense, you won't. Should we go deeper into the symbolic stories behind these truths? The hidden language of the soul. There's an old story about a traveler who comes to a village at the foot of a great mountain. The villagers warn him never to climb it. The top is cursed, they say. Anyone who reaches it disappears forever. But the traveler is curious. One morning, he starts climbing. The higher he goes, the thinner the air becomes. His legs burn. Doubt creeps in. Just as he's about to turn back, the clouds part, and for the first time, he sees the truth. The mountain isn't a dead end at all. On the other side stretches a vast, beautiful valley, more alive than anything he's ever known. The villagers couldn't see it from below, so they assumed the worst. But the traveler, he never returns, because he found something better. This is how many ancient cultures spoke about death, not as an ending, but as a journey the fearful misunderstand. The Egyptians depicted it as a solar bark carrying souls through the underworld toward rebirth. The Greeks told of the phoenix, a bird that burns to ashes only to rise again. Even modern superhero stories echo this. Think of Doctor Strange dying over and over to gain wisdom, or Neo in the Matrix realizing there is no spoon. The message is always the same. What looks like an end is often a transformation. One of the most powerful symbols is the caterpillar's metamorphosis. For the caterpillar, the cocoon must feel like death. Its whole world goes dark, its body dissolves into mush. But this breakdown is actually what allows wings to form. If you could explain to a caterpillar what's coming, it wouldn't believe you. Fly. Impossible. I'm made for crawling. This mirrors our own fear of death. We cling to what we know, unable to imagine the form that comes next. Then there's water. Watch a river rush toward a waterfall. From the water's perspective, it might seem like annihilation. But the waterfall isn't the end. It's where the river learns it was never just a river. It becomes mist, joins clouds, falls as rain, and rises again. This cyclical pattern appears everywhere. Day becomes night, becomes day again. Seeds die in soil to become trees. Even our cells replace themselves every 7 years. Death is just part of nature's rhythm, not opposite to life, but part of its dance. Modern culture hides these truths in plain sight. In The Lion King, Mufasa tells Simba, "We are all connected in the great circle of life." In Avatar, Awa's energy flows between all living things. Even Pixar's Coco shows the dead existing vibrantly as long as they're remembered. These aren't just stories. They're echoes of an ancient understanding we've forgotten. The darkest symbol? Prison. Imagine inmates who've lived in chains since birth. One day, the locks click open. But instead of walking out, they huddle inside, terrified of the unknown. This is how many live, chained by fear to a life they don't love, afraid to step into the freedom that may await. The irony: the prison door was never locked. The only thing keeping them inside was the belief that it was. These stories all point to one truth: death is only frightening when seen from the limited view of the physical world. But symbols are the language of the soul, and they keep whispering that there's more. Much more. Ready to explore how this changes the way we live? Living like you remember. Knowing that death isn't what we've been told changes everything, not just about dying, but about how we live right now. Imagine spending your whole life thinking a storm was coming, boarding up your windows, hiding in the basement, only to realize there was never any storm. That's what happens when we stop fearing the end. The energy we wasted on worry gets freed up for living. First, it changes how we handle loss. Grief doesn't disappear, But its edges soften when we realize loved ones aren't gone, they've just moved to a place our physical senses can't perceive. Many cultures celebrate ancestors rather than mourn them. In Mexico, Dia de los Muertos turns remembrance into a vibrant festival where death and life dance together. When a friend's father passed, she kept finding dimes in strange places, always heads up. She took it as a wink, a way he was saying, "I'm still around." These aren't just coincidences, they're reminders that connection doesn't stop just because bodies do. Second, fear loses its power. Most of our anxieties, about money, status, what others think, boil down to fearing we'll run out of time. But if time isn't the prison we thought, we can start making braver choices. That job you hate? The relationship that dims your light? The dream you keep postponing? Suddenly they look different. As one hospice nurse noted, no one on their deathbed regrets not working more hours. They regret not loving more boldly, not saying yes to joy. Third, it rewires daily moments. That morning coffee tastes richer when you're not subconsciously thinking, another day closer to the end. Arguments feel smaller when you realize your eternal soul's temporarily wearing human costumes. Even pain becomes easier to bear when viewed as a temporary lesson rather than a meaningless punishment. A man who survived a near-fatal accident said the strangest part was realizing, if that had been it, I would have been okay. That's the secret. When you know you can't truly be destroyed, you stop living from a place of lack. This isn't about being reckless, it's about being awake. You still wear a seatbelt, but not because you're terrified of death, because you respect this temporary body's role in your journey. You still care for aging parents, but with less desperation, knowing parting isn't permanent. You still chase goals, but as expressions of your soul's growth, not frantic attempts to leave a mark before vanishing. The biggest shift? You start spotting clues everywhere, in the way old songs play at just the right moment, in dreams that feel more real than waking life, in the quiet knowing that whispers, "You've done this before." The world becomes less like a random accident and more like a school where death is merely graduation day. And when you live like that, others feel it. Your calm in crisis, your joy amid chaos, your refusal to buy into fear, it becomes contagious. That's how we change the world, not by convincing minds, but by living proof that there's nothing to fear. One fearless life at a time. Shall we wrap this journey together in the final section? The invitation to wake up. Here's the truth, plain and simple. You have always been alive, and you always will be. Death is just a word we use to describe the moment we step out of one room and into another. The fear of it has been the greatest trick ever played on humanity. A shadow puppet show designed to keep us small, obedient, and distracted. But the curtain is lifting. The light is breaking through. What now? This isn't just about believing something different. It's about living differently. Today, right now, in the middle of your ordinary, extraordinary life. Stop waiting. Stop postponing joy for someday. Someday is a myth. The only time you ever have is this breath, this heartbeat, this moment. That dream you've been putting off. Start it now. That love you've been afraid to express. Speak it now. That version of yourself you keep hidden. Unleash it now. You weren't given eternity later. You were given eternity now, disguised as today. Let go of the petty battles. The grudges, the competitions, the need to be right. None of it matters in the face of what you really are. Imagine floating above Earth and looking down, how small the things we fight over would seem. The person who wronged you. Just another soul in another body, as lost and learning as you once were. Forgive them. Forgive yourself. None of this is as serious as fear made it seem. Look for the signs. The universe is constantly whispering to you, through synchronicities, through dreams, through that quiet knowing in your chest. Pay attention. When a memory surfaces for no reason, when a song repeats, when a stranger says exactly what you needed to hear, that's not coincidence. That's the real world poking through the illusion, reminding you that you're part of something vast and alive. Love recklessly. In a world where nothing truly dies, love is the only currency that matters. Love the people beside you. Love the ones who left. Love the messy, imperfect, glorious experience of being human. Love even when it hurts, because love is the fabric of what we really are. Everything else is just temporary noise. And when your final moment comes, whether it's decades from now or tomorrow, meet it not with fear, but with the quiet excitement of a traveler stepping onto a new path. You've done this before. You'll do it again. The only difference this time? You might just remember. This is your awakening. This is your reminder. The lie about death ends with you, not when you die, but when you start truly living. The question isn't whether you believe this. The question is, now that you remember, how will you live?